How are you, everybody? Hope everything's all right here. 1, 2, checking the levels. Seems okay. You guys hearing me? Uh, Perfect. Yeah, my Radio Canada International cowboy hat and my CRI official jacket that is so small. Uh, so just gonna wait a few minutes to see everything all right. It's very hot here. I actually have the air conditioning on because I would be dying from heat in here with the live show. It's just crazy. It's nice to have you all here for this special show. We'll check out if we hear pirates. It's a little early, but there are pirates actually earlier today, this afternoon. So it seems that activity is pirate activity is there. Let's put HF Underground here. Here I know that. Very. Yeah, that's really weird. Around 15,920. If you guys want to see a signal, that is the famous HF trading signal. You know, those financial trading companies that are going to use transmitters for shortwave. 15920 is that. Pretty strong tones. So I guess they're sending some HF trading stuff there. Okay, so it's about 80 Fahrenheit, close to 80 Fahrenheit outside. And I'm glad I still haven't taken out my air conditioning. I'm using it today. So shortwave pirate, anything reported right now? There was something at 18 with some tones on 6955. So we'll see. We'll have probably we'll probably have some soon as we're getting closer. Okay, so welcome aboard, everyone. This is the Shortwave Live Show special edition for Halloween, and we are, of course, here to have fun with radio. And we're going to go back in time a little bit today, as we'll go to the graveyard of dead stations, as I call them. We'll be playing interval signals and audio clips from the past. So don't get too nostalgic. It might not. It's going to be fun. I don't know how many people are going to show up because it's not a Saturday. So usually at this time, a weekday, a lot of people are working or doing stuff. So anyway, it's nice to have all of you here. My name is Gilles. I'm located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, northeast parts of North America. And we are here, of course, to entertain. I was supposed to wear this horrible mask right here, but after wearing it for 5 minutes, I noticed that I would be going crazy if I keep it. So I took it out. But I was supposed to wear this. And I thought, well, I'll drink my beer with a straw or something. But no, forget it. It's just too uncomfortable to wear. So I just put it here as a decoration. And of course, my inflatable ghost is here with us. He is the ghost of shortwave past. So Nice to have everybody here. So there's a beautiful chat room. If you want to say hello, ask questions, anything, as we're going to talk and go back in time. I'm going to talk about what there was in the past. I was looking at a schedule of shortwave stations that I found somewhere. It dated back to 1981, and I was looking at what we were listening to in North America in an evening of 1981, and it's just incredible. The number of stations, that was the day when you had to choose between what country you want to hear and alternate from night to night because you couldn't listen to it all. So it was something. And of course, all the stations were close by, really, really close by, 5 kilohertz. So you needed a good radio because it was difficult sometimes to listen to your favorite broadcast just because the signal from the adjacent stations were so powerful they would interfere with the station you're trying to listen to. Sometimes it would drive me mad as it was difficult to separate, especially on the first radio, the realistic DX100. So cheers, everybody. Um, so there's a beautiful chat room, wonderful people. And after that, there's, of course, the Facebook group where a lot of people are going after and share what they're listening to, including pirate radioactivity. There's a lot of posts of some people, some of the users there on the Facebook group, which is more than 4,000 members now, and that listen to pirates and, of course, all sorts of other stuff. So it's pretty interesting. One of the things about the past of shortwave is the discovery of when you're new to the hobby and the discovery of all these stations that were there. I remember my first night was in August because I had radios before, but my shortwave start really is dating to so there was a multi-band radio where I would hear Morse code and all of these weird signals, wondering what they were. But there was the realistic DX100, which was my first official shortwave radio, and which did only that in medium wave. And thanks to I don't know, the manual was like 10, 12 pages, but it was really good at explaining what shortwave is all about and what you could hear. And I remember turning it on, and the first night, just with the telescopic whip in the back of the DX100, I was astonished. I spent the whole evening listening to the world, literally. And of course, since there was a lot of stations in August of '82, what was the first station I've heard? I don't remember. Honestly, I don't remember what was the first one. But I do remember that in that evening, I did hear the BBC. I did hear Call Israel. I heard Radio Berlin International. All of these stations. Talking of Call Israel, we have a religious station on 1650 kilohertz AM in Montreal. It's actually one of the only stations that is HD on its frequency. So with my HDR14 Saint Jean, I could listen to that station. And I noticed the other night, I left it on. They were playing like the top 10 Christian contemporary hits of the week or something. And I, at 7 p.m. local, which is 23 UTC, the signal, the programming changed. And I remember that station was a Jewish station for the Jewish community. And when they changed to the religious programming, I thought that it had completely changed. But at 7 p.m., they actually changed to Radio Shalom, and actually had Call Israel full news bulletin on the AM band at 7 p.m. So I was like, well, okay. And that I heard it last week. So, and since then I've been wanting to try to tune in at 7 p.m., but I forget every night. I forget. So, anyways, that was kind of interesting because it brought me back to the time of Call Israel on shortwave, and of course there was also the other stations like Galei Zahal and so on. There's so many interesting stuff to listen to back in the day. So that was definitely the good old days, of radio and shortwave radio. So hello there, Master Players Radio and Television. Nice to have you on board. WA5107 SWL in Morgan City, Louisiana. Marvin Motz. Nice to have you here. The picture that I put as the thumbnail picture for the special stream today, I found on the internet. I was looking for cool Halloween pictures to put on Facebook, and I came across that one, which was really nice because it kind of represents the radio at the same time as a pirate ship, pirate flag, and some pumpkins on like an old wooden boat. So it's like an old wooden ship. So I thought it was very beautiful, and it was, and it could represent pirate radio activity. So it's kind of cool. Nick Hammond, nice to have you here. PVM, nice to have you on board. Thank you so much. Sound in Illinois, nice to have you on board just for a few minutes and doing some repairs. And have a good time. Richard Wagner, nice to have you on board, Northeast Illinois, and feeling a tad better for your sinus infection. Hope it gets well soon, my friend. Shortwave Archive, nice to have you on board from Colorado. RJ88 Dakota, nice to have you here from Winsville, Missouri. Shortwave Archive, nice to have you here. Gary24 fan, nice to have you on board. Volts, nice to have you on board from Latvia. YL30I, nice to have you here for sure. And DX Winger, nice to have you on board. 80 degrees in Southeast Pennsylvania, pretty much the same here. Jerry Hart, nice to have you here. 75 degrees in Niagara Falls, New York. So this is going to be interesting because tonight, after the live show, my nephew's going to join me. We're going to go to there's haunted alleys around here where we're going to take a walk and go and see the haunted alleys. And I was thinking, wow, this is perfect weather for Halloween. I mean, beautiful, warm. Last year was cold. I remember last year we gone through the different alleys, and watching. I like to watch the kids dressed up and getting candy. And I remember when we ended the night, it was like, it's getting cold. I think it's time to go home. And it was getting cold last year. And it's a good change because one of the biggest problems, and I always find it sad, is either it's raining or really cold here on Halloween night. And I find it sad that the kids, especially when it's raining, kids going through Halloween and rain is kind of sad. I remember, what was it? 5 years, in 2018, 19, 18, because I went to see Roger Hodgson of Supertramp in concert Halloween night, and boy, it was pouring rain. It was crazy pouring rain. It was so bad weather that many cities had asked the parents to postpone Halloween and put it on the weekend that would follow because the weather was just too bad. But boy, it was raining and was it bad. But kids were dressed up and getting candy anyway. Rob's radio channel, nice to have you on board. Happy Halloween. KJ Walden, nice to have you on board from the Netherlands. Shortwave Archive, seen old schedules where they listed Radio Moscow and various frequencies. And talking about that, we'll continue on our list of people. We're actually going to show you guys exactly what he means with the frequencies of Radio Moscow. We're going to get one here that is particularly interesting. Radio Moscow. So it's this one. So here we go. And let's go to the graveyard of stations. And hopefully this is going to be, I'm going to put this here. Okay. I'm just going to put this to the correct speakers. Here we go. And
this is the North American service of Radio Moscow, broadcasting on 17.70, 15.45, 15.42, 15.14, 12.05, 9.87, 9.76, 9.72, 9.70, 7.32, 7.18, 7.15, 7.11, and 6.11 megahertz.
So you just hear the frequency announcement. Let me check one. So it's Radio Moscow. The volume here is good.
This is the North American service of Radio Moscow, broadcasting on 17.70, 15.45, 15.42, 15.14, 12.05, 9.87, 9.76, 9.72, 9.70, 7.32, 7.18.
Look at all these frequencies. I mean, just so amazing to hear that.
This is the North American service of Radio Moscow, broadcasting on 17.70, 15.45, 15.42, 15.14, 12.05, 9.87,
yeah, Volts.
9.76.
You have heard right. You were everywhere.
9.70, 7.32, 7.18, 7.15, 7.11, and 6.11 megahertz.
And their interval signal. So that was Radio Moscow. I'm just going to put this here. And yep. So yeah, definitely they had some crazy frequencies in the middle of the amateur band, the 40-meter band. They were everywhere. I mean, I've got QSL cards from Radio Moscow, from 7.110. I got one from 7150 kilohertz. I mean, I think I even have one 7100. They usually were on 3 or 4 frequencies at the same time in the 40-meter band, which is crazy when you think about it today. When Radio Moscow and a lot of other stations from that era were broadcasting everywhere. The 40-meter band was a broadcast band. And it's later on, I think it's in the late 80s, early 90s, that they actually made, the ITU made a new rule that said, look, international broadcasts should not be below 7200. And that changed a lot of the 40 meter band, because the 40 meter band would be crowded with stations of not just Moscow, many shortwave broadcasters everywhere, starting at 7100. Today, it's mostly clandestines that might have that frequency range used, but because I know there's a few stations that are in that range still. But most international broadcasters today abide by the rule of just just going above 7200 now. But it was something. And most of the stations, because on 7200, 73 to 7300, the 40 meter band part there is shared. Now, stations in North America cannot broadcast on that frequency range, but stations in Europe, Middle East are allowed to use that frequency range for international broadcasting. And in fact, there are quite a few. I mean, 7200, 7300 has every night, every evening, a good, at least 4 or 5 stations that with pretty strong signals, and actually drives a lot of hams crazy. There's some hams sometimes that almost intentionally just walk over these broadcasters, hoping that they'll go away. But 1 kilowatt ham versus a 250 kilowatt Radio Romania does not make much difference. But they do for the 40 meter band. It some people are not happy, and they do come in quite strong here in the evening. Another one that is broadcast is Voice of Turkey. Voice of Turkey was using 7275 on the A21 schedules, and that was very strong here in North America. So if you were close to that frequency, you were being interfered with by Voice of Turkey English, which ironically was broadcast to the western part of North America. So what else do we have? So let's go down slowly. Thank you for the comment. Nice hat. I don't know. I made this several years ago. Because I thought, well, the Ghost of Shortwave Past should have something that doesn't exist anymore. And I thought, well, I went to the dollar store and saw this hat, and I thought, well, I could, print an RCI, little RCI banner, and just put it on the hat. So I thought, yeah, that'd be good. So actually, I came across it last night. I was like, oh, I still have the hat, because I'd almost forgotten about it. So I thought, yeah, I'm going to wear the hat. And of course, the official CRI jacket, the China radio jacket, that I got as an official shortwave monitor for them way back in about 2001, 2002. At that time, they had a huge expansion of their services. And what happened is that they wanted monitors, official monitors, and they would give gifts to all the official monitors that would send in at least reception reports and details on reception every day. You had to write every day. So every day I would, check their frequencies for North America and give them, reports. And I would actually be getting QSLs for these reports. So I got at that era, I would get 20, 30 QSLs from China every month. And of course, it was kind of boring, because at one point, they were all the same with the same pictures. So it's like, yeah, stop sending me QSL cards, please. It's too much. And but they would send gifts. I got a wine kit, a nice box with a wine kit, like a bottle opener and all sorts of thingies for people that enjoy wine. I had these little hand painted bottles that are painted like from the inside. I had which were made of glass. I had I still have it here. I got a tennis set, which is like all the tennis gear that you put on and wear for with the CRI logo on it. I got this jacket, which even when I was much smaller back then, was still too small, and this is an X large. So the first thing that it made me laugh was like, wow, I guess Chinese people are not as big guys as the Canadians. So and believe it or not, they even went the to a time where they wanted to have very serious monitors, and I was asked to be one of those. That would pay you cash. They would send you up to $500 per month. And I'm not joking. There was this era of if you would listen to every single broadcast, comment on them, which was very time consuming because now you have to listen to China radio like really, really a lot. But first of all, I didn't have time for that. And second of all, I also started feeling that it was kind of weird because they were starting to get very, very personal. They were asking me tons of questions, very personal questions. And it almost made me think that they were in search of spies or something. It really made me feel like, oh, they're looking for what, a Canadian spy that could give them some details about something important. It was crazy. It was totally crazy. I still remember. And boy, that's pretty much where I stopped. I was getting, and it was pretty tired of sending them reports all the time. I was like, yeah, the gifts are nice and everything, but I'm just tired now. So this is part of the gifts that I got back then. Which, of course, I would not see myself wearing a China Radio International little jacket going around town. That would be kind of weird, but it was like, yeah, it's kind of a nice souvenir from an era of when they were like really everywhere. Now, today in North America, believe it or not, China Radio International is kind of difficult to monitor. They got a few frequencies from Cuba that are not always good. And most of the rest that you'll hear will mostly be either African service or European service, stuff like that, or when propagation is good, direct from China. So, anyways, it's kind of interesting to see that. Okay, where? What else? What else? What else? RJ Dakota says it's just chill here and actually getting cooler. Yeah, tomorrow we're gonna be going to the 60s, but by mid afternoon it's supposed to drop off real fast, and the weekend's gonna be rather cool. Well, we say cool, but in reality, it's like we're just gonna be back to the normal temperatures. Shortwave Archive says not much pirate activity checking for today, but I heard KOVR TV studio to transmitter link on 26110. Oh, that is cool. That is cool. I haven't heard one of the studio to transmitter links in a long time on that band. 20 hours 22 UTC. There's a pirate on 6945 KRST. So let's check that. Yeah, it's very, very weak in the noise here on my ICOM, but it is there. So if you guys want to try it out, KRST 6945 kilohertz upper sideband. We have one pirate right now. And there's probably going to be a lot of pirates tonight. What else do we have? Dean KQ4ADG. 8D G. Nice to have you here. Uh, or J, sorry, ADJ. Good afternoon. Nice to have you here. And I look very festive. Yeah, it's Halloween. I like Halloween. I like also, going in after that, going to see the alleys, the haunted alleys, and all sorts of things. 54 Cal, nice to have you on board. Happy Halloween. Southern Illinois says, thought you may have created that picture with Copilot. Nah, I did not. But if you ask it, it has some interesting stuff that it gives you. Richard Wagner, the DX286, has WWV. Cool. The radio guy, nice to have you here from Michigan. Happy Halloween. Sully Dio Gloria, nice to have you on board. From the mighty Colorado Plateau in Utah, nice to have you here. James Glencross, nice to have you on board from the UK. Chelsea Barracuda, nice to have you on board from Ireland. Put my first antenna up this year, a 4HF vertical antenna, picking up some great stuff on shortwave. Also put an MLA30 and a long wire. Cool. That's going to keep you busy. Pretty cool. Beautiful evening, 14 degrees there. Ajay Dakota says Radio Moscow had almost too many frequencies to mention. Yeah, absolutely. Man, it was crazy. You could hear them. There was always a frequency that was good. That's the advantage of, let's just put 30 frequencies every hour, and you almost always had one frequency that was good. One that I remember very well, because most of the fall, winter, spring, it was coming in all the time, all afternoon. It was 11840, I remember. If I wanted to listen to Radio Moscow English service, like at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, I'd just punch in 11840. It was almost always coming in good enough that you could hear it well. So pretty crazy. So William Parmley, nice to have you here. Jada Kadir said that was almost 14 or 15 frequencies. Amazing. And imagine they had that many frequencies for the English service, but they had tons of other frequencies active in all the other languages also. So can you imagine? They had, at some point, I remember looking, and they had more than 100 transmitters on the air at the same time. That was something. Talking about that was something. Somebody mentioned, I think it was on Glenn Hauser's World of Radio, that radio, the Voice of Russia, was still actually reserving frequencies at the ITU for transmissions. Since the Voice of Russia left shortwave, it registers frequencies every scheduled season as if they're going to transmit and use them. And so a lot of people are wondering, why is that? Are they really, is there somebody somewhere hoping that they will reactivate shortwave transmitters? Someone was mentioning maybe it's a bureaucratic thing that, people aren't talking to each other. So there's this, bureaucrat somewhere that his task is to get frequencies, and he just sends them in, but is unaware that maybe it's not used anymore. Marvin Motz, my wife won't let me put up Halloween decorations because that would frighten and freak out the neighbors. PVM, do shortwave radio stations still acknowledge reception reports with QSL cards? Most do, but you're not necessarily going to get a paper card. Most have chosen to go the EQSL way. So you get an EQSL through your email, which is kind of cool. I have a few here. What I do is I print them on photo paper. So I use my printer and print them on photo paper, so it makes a paper card. And of course, I keep the original email with, not the email, but the picture itself in the picture folders of EQSLs. There are a few that do send cards by mail. I know Radio Romania was mentioning in their mailbag program that they are going to resume paper card sending sometime in the next few weeks. So that's interesting. There's a few that send paper QSLs. So yeah. So Vault says 7200, 7300 is assigned to hams in region 2 and 3. I see a lot of broadcast stations if I listen. How much do they affect things in Canada, US? So like I said, we do hear quite a few. Not as strong, but there are a few that are very powerful. But most are, weaker because the transmissions are often for Europe or Middle East and stuff like that. So they're not directed to us most of the time. So they're not too strong, but still they're there. I mean, if like when Radio Romania puts one of those frequencies for Western Europe, well, it's kind of transmitting towards us anyways. So usually that comes in pretty well too. So, let's go down. See if missed out on something. Okay. RJ Dakota. Jerry Agnew, nice to have you here from Belfast, Northern Ireland. RJ Dakota used to always get Voice of Nigeria 7275, later changed to 7255. Yeah, 7255. That was Nigeria all the time. We would just go and it was nice to just go there. You punched in 7255 in late afternoon. And talking of Voice of Nigeria, the story I have with Voice of Nigeria is of the first time. So for a brief year, one of my best friends was also listening to shortwave. He'd come over to my place, to my house, and seen shortwave radio in activity, and I would show him my DX100. So he got a DX100 also. And for a year, we would listen together, and sometimes we would actually be on the phone and we would write reception reports. And I remember we would go together to the post office to mail reception reports. We were mailing so many of them that the lady at the post office, there's a very small post office that was inside another business. It was anyways, another business was there. So a jewelry. It was a jewelry store, and at one point, that lady looks at us and says, "What are you guys doing? Every week you come in here with like 40 envelopes to send internationally. What are you guys doing?" And we started talking to her about, well, we're listening to international broadcasters, and we would write to them to let them know we're hearing them and all of that, and we would get tons of things. And one day I actually went there to get stamps, and I had letters with me. I showed her. I said, "Look, this is where I got." I had one. The letter was Radio Moscow, and she was just amazed. She was like, "Wow, you're getting all of these letters from all around the world." Yeah, absolutely. So it was kind of a cool time. But anyways, it's a hot. We've just finished school. It's late June, and I'm preparing myself. It's 1983. I'm preparing myself to just enjoy a summer of going to the pool, going to play the park, play some baseball, stuff like that, and shortwave like crazy at times that I can't when I'm going to school. And sometimes pull all-nighters. That was something. I still remember from time to time, I was like, okay, tonight is an all-nighter. I'm going to listen to shortwave up to the early morning. I would usually fall asleep somewhere around maybe 3 or 4 a.m., but It was cool. And sometimes what I would do is I do shortwave up to about 3 a.m. And a couple of days after, I'd wake up at 3 a.m. and do the rest up to the morning. So I'd wake up very, very early in the middle of the night. And so, anyways, it's late June. We're on the phone. We're doing a reception report to Voice of Nigeria. And letter goes. And I get to a point where, we're waiting, and, it was so amazing. The things you remember with unusual moments like that. So that I remember was very hot. We did a reception report. We mailed our letters together in the same mailbox at the same time. Get to, and some stations took a long time. I had stations sent back a reply or a QSL, more than a year after I'd written to them. So that was June. Forward to 84, February of 84, a huge snowstorm. It's a huge snowstorm. I'm not even expecting that the postman's going to pass that day, because it's just like, one of those big storms that we get here. So I go down and I go and check the mailbox anyway, and there's a letter, a big envelope too. And I take that envelope out, and on the upper left it says Voice of Nigeria. And I'm like jumping up and down. It's like Voice of Nigeria. My first letter from Nigeria arrived. So that day we didn't have school. They had shut down the schools because of the storm. I run back up, call my friend and say, hey, go check your mailbox this week. I just remember that reception report we had from Voice of Nigeria? Well, I've just got the envelope. I just got the letter. So he's like, oh, wow. So he goes and checked his mailbox just for fun. There's nothing. And he's waiting 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, nothing. He never received a reply. I got a big envelope, and I had a Nigerian magazine and a QSL card, which shows the Lagos airport. And boy, that was so cool to get out of the mailbox. And still remember, especially you get this special letter the first time you get the letter from Nigeria. It's a snowstorm day. All is like mixed in to be a memorable event that you never forget. So let's go here for a second, and let's check out if we have a little something from Nigeria that we could play. Nigeria. Here we go. So, here we have Voice of Nigeria. Here we go. Vintage 1982. So that would be in that time when I was listening to. So let's check this out. Voice of Nigeria. I don't remember that interval signal. Does sound like good old days of shortwave. I do remember they were sounding weird sometimes like that. Yeah, I remember that. I remember. was exotic to listen to on shortwave.
This is Voice of Nigeria, the international service of the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria.
So here we go. Now this one is in an open grave. Well, I could call it like that. Maybe in zombie state. The reason I'm saying that is that Voice of Nigeria, last year, 2023, was heard off and on, and was heard a little bit on the beginning of 2024. What we think is that they're having transmitter issues, but that at some point it would not be impossible to come back on shortwave if they fix it. And fun or interesting fact about Nigeria is that according to, this was a question on Jeopardy, and I've actually researched it. By 2100 or some, I don't remember which year, but in like 50 years from now, let's say, the third highest population in a country will be Nigeria, after China and India, which surprised me like I couldn't believe. So it will be also, of course, and I think it is right now already the most populous country in Africa. So it's pretty crazy when you think about it. So what else? Vaults, I'm sure they always are on the lookout for some intelligent spies, maybe something to blackmail with. Yeah, it was very weird feel, and I remember thinking, why does a shortwave station want so many very some very private questions and some very very personal info? And it made me think. It was like, wow, they're kind of it's their way, one of their ways of recruiting somebody. And it's very, very weird. It's like, wow, okay, that's kind of interesting. And I still remember when I stopped the monitoring and all this stuff, that email, the one that I was sending in reports, was a special email assigned, it seemed, for those that were official monitors. If I'd write to that, because every time I would write, the next day I would have a reply. That email, when I stopped being an official monitor, when I would write, it'd say that my email was rejected. As if, they had decided, well, that guy, nah, we're not going to get what we want. So let's, we're going to block him from this email. So he doesn't correspond with us anymore. Calvin, nice to have you on board. Happy Halloween. Dwayne, nice to have you here from Northeast Tennessee. RJ Dakota says 11-840-9600. RJ Dakota says Radio Moscow must have had a huge electric bill. Yeah. Well, all powered by generators, so they probably had much more of a big gas bill to power up. But it's crazy when you think about it. All of these transmitters, it's like China Today. China Today has at times several dozen broadcasts going on at the same time. It's crazy. John Beckham, nice to have you here from Northeast Florida. Mike WX50. What else do we have? Skipwave DX. Greetings from Caswell Mountain of New York. Rich here. Wood is stacked. Cool. We're getting there slowly. Radio RG Dakota says Ghana used to be on 4915. Yes, I remember that. I do remember that. I would. John Beckham says, I wish I had kept some shortwave broadcast recordings on cassette. Yeah, I had tons of cassettes with broadcasts, and I was, when I moved, when you move, you have way too much stuff. You take decisions. One of them was I just threw away a bunch of cassettes, 4-track cassettes with recordings on them, kind of thinking, it's not going to be useful anymore. But today, I think about it and I'm like, yeah, you could have all digitized that on your PC and put that up on YouTube or something for, souvenirs of the good old days. Thank you, Dean, for the donation. And by the way, if you want to send a donation, super chat and to thank me for doing a special show, it would be much appreciated. Or you can send a donation through the PayPal, and that is through this email address that you can send a little something. I want to thank everybody that have donated, and for those that never done it, how about thinking about it? As I always say, it's not always the same people to do a little something. If you like what I do, I'm here all the time. We have a show now back every Saturday. A special show today. It's a lot of work, a lot of time. Much appreciated, yes. Okay, what else? John Mickham says, I'm really impressed how sensitive my new XH Data D220 receives on its built-in telescopic. Yeah, it's a very surprising little radio, honestly. For, just what it is, a simple little portable, it's totally worth the price. Mike WX50 received verification letter from Radio Nigeria, Kaduna, 1981. That's pretty crazy. A lot of, unusual stuff. One of the stations that I have good memories of is the station which was on 4904.5, Radio Nationale Tchadienne. That station for me is special because when I moved to an apartment, so here I'm going to go and see if I can get that. I'll get that interval signal from Chad. Where is it? Chad. Okay. Chad. So when I moved to the place I was before getting here, I was tuning in to Radio Nationale Tchadienne that was signing on at 0430 UTC. So in the wintertime, that would be 11:30 p.m. So before going to bed, because I'd work in the morning, I'd listen to the first hour-ish of Radio Nationale Tchadienne, in which was coming in so loud and clear. And I always thought it was so weird that they choose that frequency of 4904.5. So here's what it sounded like. The interval signal.
Ghana, Radio-Diffusion Nationale Tchadienne. Bonjour madame, bonjour mademoiselle, messieurs, bonjour.
Yeah, that brings me back in time. I can tell you guys that. I remember the interval signal. I remember the national anthem, and that guy, the way that he says, his introduction to welcome to the broadcast. Dang, it's brings me back in the day. But I still remember in the dark, I was lying in bed, and my Kenwood 5000 to my right on a little table, and I would just be listening to that. Boy, that was amazing. Radio Uganda had a different interval signal as well. Yeah, let's go to the graveyard of Uganda now. These are all stations that are long gone. So, Radio Uganda, external service, vintage, 1982. Let's listen to this. I remember that.
Uganda, transmitting from Kampala to Southern Africa on 9,515 kHz in the 31 meter band. We start our transmission with the news in English. It will be followed 10 minutes later.
So that was Radio Uganda. It's pretty interesting. London 19657, happy Halloween. Nice to have you here. Art Dodd, nice to have you on board. K2ADC. Southern Illinois says, one of my longtime friends that was into shortwave for years sent me an email out of the blue not long ago. He listened up until about 5 years ago, and the noise at his place got so bad he sold his gear. And, I'm sure that we've lost a lot of shortwave listeners because of the noise. That is one of it's the hobby killer, the number one hobby killer. So this is unfortunate, but that's the way it is. That's the way it is. But there's a lot of interesting stuff back in the day, and we're going to go through some of those little recordings today. We're digging through the graveyard of shortwave radio. If there's a graveyard that I wouldn't mind walking through, is the graveyard of dead shortwave stations. I'm sure there must be tons of stories and memories in there. I'd love, if there were people, I guess if we would dig, an idea that just crossed my mind is there must be out there tons of personalities we heard on radio stations that are long gone, still alive, that maybe if I'd contact them or anything, they'd probably be happy to get live and talk about the good old days of when they worked at Radio Sweden or Radio Norway or whatever other station that's gone, even Radio Canada International. Pretty cool. RJ Dakota says, recorded all of those onto micro SD cards, played them on my ICR11 110 radio recorder. Cool. Joe Brown, happy Halloween. Nice to have you here from Southeast Michigan. No problem, Shortwave Archive. The Shortwave Archive says, as a new shortwave listener, 2 years, I will never forget the feeling of hearing Radio New Zealand, RRI, and Voice of Turkey interval signals for the first time. Yeah, definitely. Vault says, Radio Uganda recording did not realize it was in English for quite a while. There's a lot of, it's like Nigeria. When we go back to Nigeria, they used to have this very low frequency. The guy had a big low frequency voice that, with, of course, an accent. When he would speak English, it was actually very hard to understand what he was saying. And I remember sometimes listening and thinking, wow, maybe they should have got some other guy or some women that has a clearer voice. But there, a lot of the stations back in the day, listen to, China radio today sounds standard English like any other radio station. And okay, I understand that they did that probably to make sure that everybody clearly understands the program. But I'm pretty sure all of you agree, even though sometimes it was hard to understand. The Radio Beijing, Radio Peking days of Chinese announcers was much more interesting. It was exotic. It was, well, that's China. It's a Chinese guy or a Chinese woman that's giving me. Today it's like you're not even sure they're Chinese. You're even wondering if they're not, from other countries. I wouldn't be surprised they got some, Canadian or U.S. announcers on China radio. It's funny because today they sound just like standard English, and it takes out some of the exotic side of shortwave when they decide to do that. It's like NHK Japan. The French NHK Japan is absolutely funny for me because one of the announcers is a Quebecois, French Quebecois guy. It's obvious his French accent is French Canadian. It's you spot it immediately. I'm like, oh wow, they took some French Canadian guy to do the French program on NHK Japan. And sometimes he's with this woman. She sounds more like a Japanese woman that speaks French, but him is like, wow, why didn't you take some Japanese dude? But man, at times, definitely, it was so weird and so difficult to understand a word. Let's check out here if anything else popped up in pirate activity. Just sort of NID 6925 AM mode at 2056 UT. So a few minutes ago was spotted 6925 AM. Yeah, he's definitely a carrier. 6925 AM NID, so no idea of what it is right now. So pirate stations are starting early tonight. Shortwave Archive. Do you have RRI Jakarta? Let's check that out. RRI Jakarta. And go back down here. So let's check out Indonesia. Indonesia. Go. RRI. Kappa, Jumbo. Let me try to find RRI. So I've got this, which is RRI Voice of Indonesia external service. Vintage 1998 interval signal. There's one old one from 1965. There's one here from 2001. Let's check that out. Voice of Indonesia.
This is the voice of Indonesia in Jakarta.
There we go.
Hello, listeners in Asia, the Pacific area, Europe, the Middle East, North Africa, or wherever you may be. This is the voice of Indonesia broadcasting from Jakarta on frequencies of 9525 kilohertz or 31 meter band, 15150 kilohertz or 19 meter band, and 11785 kilohertz or 25 meter band.
There we go. And here we go. This is pretty cool. Mike WX50 recorded shortwave programs onto cassette tapes that I have somewhere. You know, if you have them, if you don't have a way to digitize them, if you want to do something, and by the way, it goes for everybody watching this. You have shortwave broadcasts on cassette. You'd like to share them with everybody. If we can find a way that you can send me the cassettes, and I can send them back after. I can play them through my the little boombox I got here and record them through my console to digitize them, and I would put them online on YouTube for everybody to share. It'd be really, really cool. Arda Jill, how did you get interested in shortwave? In my case, it was my grandfather with his Panasonic shortwave radio. John Beckham, it was always the bells of Radio Netherlands that I remember with that reverberation. Yep, I'm going to get to that one. I'm just going to answer Art's question, and we're going to play Radio Netherlands, another graveyard station. So I got interested, honestly, I've said it, the first radio I've ever owned is my sister, one of my sisters, that bought me the Ernie in the Bathtub AM radio. I was 5 or 6 years old. So I don't know if I can find a Ernie in the Bathtub AM radio. Just need to bathtub Ernie and the bathtub. And is that the one? Yes, that's the one. So look at that, guys. This is off of eBay. Somebody's selling it for $25 US. Dang, I almost want to buy it. I almost want to buy this thing. Ernie in the Bathtub. That was the exact radio I had, except it's missing something. He had a duck, a little duck. Let me see. Is this one with the duck? Yeah, the duck is missing. But anyways, it was like that. That was an AM radio. And here's the link, guys, for that. So you guys could see what it was like. So my first radio, in fact, was that from, I was 5 or 6 years old. Man, did I play with that radio. And back in the day, there was a lot of AM stations. I remember the 9-volt, there was a 9-volt battery, and I remember the clip for the 9-volt battery broken off. And I would put the battery and put the two wires, positive and negative. That's when I learned positive and negative at 5 or 6 years old. Oh, the red goes here and the black goes there. And I would position it so that they would touch and be okay. And then I'd put the battery cover and it would work fine until the next battery change. And the battery lasted for an eternity in there. Was it a good radio? I don't remember. I have no souvenir of, because I wasn't into what at 6 years old, you just got a radio and you're listening to stuff. My first real radio interest, my first real moment when I realized I was actually very interested in radio waves and of all kinds, is when I got a pair of walkie-talkies from my brother. My brother had, when your brother lives with you, what do you think a young brother that's 8 or 9 years old does? He sticks his face in the drawers of his big brother and looks what's inside. We all do this. I guess I just want to see what does my brother have, And I would do that mostly because I knew he would hide candy in one of his drawers. So I would often go and look in one of these drawers just to see if there was some candy there. And for some reason, there was one drawer that I would never look into. And I opened it, and it was a box. And on the box was walkie-talkies. And I guess, by that time, my brother was 16, 15. So, his interest in that was not there anymore. And they were like really well stored. I'm just going to check out. If I can find that, the good old days of those talkies. They were branded FAHON, foul, something like that. They had a red button on the side. You could send Morse code, so you could put it in tone mode and send a tone, a beep. It had 3 channels with crystals. That opened my mind and my eyes to the radio world. I would have these and be amazed and see how far can we go before we can't speak to each other. And I would imagine in my head the invisible wave going from my antenna on the talkie to my friend the other side of the park. It also was the first time I heard CB skip. But back in that time, I didn't know it was from that far away. I thought it was some, local people. And it would make me mad because when the skip was strong, those little talkies were 100 milliwatts. You couldn't really talk very far because the skip would just override everything. And I didn't know. It took a lot of time before I realized, oh, this comes from far away. This is interesting. Then my father purchased, and that opened up a bigger world. My father purchased a multi-band radio at consumer distributing stores here in Canada. We had these very weird stores here in Canada. You would go there. There was a catalog. You would look at what you want. They had these little papers and pens. You would put the number of the item, and you'd go to the counter, give the little paper, and at some point you'd see somebody, you would see like boxes come out of it all the time from like a curtain, and they would take the box and call up your name. And so that's the first time we got that multi-band radio. And it had all of these weird things. SW1, SW2 was the weirdest for me. It was like, what's that? What does it mean? I remember it was the first time I heard VHF aircraft. And I was maybe 11 or 12 years old at the time. And people didn't believe me. My friends were like, yeah, you can't hear aircraft. You need special equipment. That's super expensive. And you don't... you can't do that, and you can't. And one day, one of the let me just go back here. Okay, so one day, one of my friend's brother comes and says, "Well, make me listen to an aircraft." So I put it on the frequency of the airport, and out comes Air Canada 256, and and his brother is like, "Wow, he does hear aircraft. This is cool." And that radio, I remember it had that little flap on the top with the world map. I don't remember what brand it was. I'd like to find a radio, consumer distributing catalog of 1980. I would guess 1980 would be the ones. 79, 80, 81. If I could get my hands on one of those, maybe I would recognize it in the catalog itself. So that opened up my eyes to the bigger world of, wow, there's a lot of other stuff out there. And I would listen to the local police. I would listen to aircraft. I would go through the SW1, 2, weird stuff. One night hearing, "This is London," and being the innocent, ignorant about shortwave guy that I was like, "London, Ontario, Canada?" No, it was London, England, the BBC. And from that radio, that SW12 was so prevalent. It was so mysterious that's what made me get the realistic DX100, because I'd seen that it was the same frequency range, but that one was dedicated for shortwave. So I thought, it might be better than the half of what I hear, which is, it was not very good on shortwave. I remember that multiband, and that's where it all starts, and that's the sequence of events that brings me here today, and we have a live show and talk about radio on Halloween. So pretty cool stuff. So that's the start of all of it. Now let's check for one very popular station from the day. And of course, we talk about Radio Netherlands.
Well, from Hilversum in Holland, this is Radio Netherlands, the Dutch international service, broadcasting to Europe on 6045 kilohertz in the 49-meter band, and also on 9860 kilohertz in the 31-meter band. We're also broadcasting to the east coast of North America on 5965 kilohertz, and that's found in the 49-meter band. The news is next here on Radio Netherlands. Independent thinking, independent voice.
So remember when they were broadcasting from the Bonaire transmitter site in the Caribbean? Radio Netherlands. I have that QSL card from the last transmission, which is it's, when I see it, it's an emotional QSL, because it does say thank you and goodbye. And it's like, well, it's like listening. It was like listening to the WCBS last broadcast we did. It's, I was there listening that last day of broadcast, and that at that specific time, at some point, when the signal goes away, it's gone, and it's gone forever. Which is pretty sad. Radio Netherlands was a big player. I remember having tons of documentation from Radio Netherlands about antennas, and they had little leaflets. They had like these little booklets of 3-4 pages with reviews of portable shortwave radios, and even tabletop shortwave radios. It was quite extensive. It was really, really interesting. That station was really taking shortwave seriously. Man, Shortwave Archive, Ian McFarlane from RCI, Shortwave Listening Digest. I actually have here, I would need to find them, a set of 2 CDs of interval signals from around the world. And it is actually personally autographed by Ian McFarlane, which I should really, really find and show you guys at some point on one of the live shows. So the RCI SWL Digest. Yeah, that is. Can we find a recording of something like that? I'd like to check it out. So RCI SWL Digest. Do we have anything? Do we have anything here? Radio Canada. Yeah, we don't have. Doesn't seem to have. Must be one of those recordings somewhere. Radio Canada International, Ian McFarlane. Anything pops up? Radio Canada retrospective. Yeah, it's so sad. Oh, but let's play this though. There's a little something here.
I said it was a music show. I'm going to play some music right now, but check this out. I got a letter this week from D. Jane Candy Dread. Yes.
So that's the Maple Leaf mailbag from Radio Canada
you know who
International.
You are. She's a good friend of, all of the members of the Radio Zeter Club, but in particular, our good buddy, Waribi Blit Poor Benny. And this is what D. Jane Candy Dread says. She says, "Dear Ian Jones, I heard that you were in Europe recently. I hope that someday you'll make it to Spain too." And you have no idea, D. Jane, I really want to make it to Spain. Got big plans to see Barcelona and to go to...
So that was the Maple Leaf mailbag. And of course, we have the famous interval signal that's going to make everybody cry. And here we go.
Radio Canada International.
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 There was one also at the start of a show, which was like, oh man, it starts with their program. For those that haven't seen it, I don't know if it's available somewhere, but Amanda Dawn Christie has a documentary on the demise of Radio Canada International and dismantle of the Sackville transmitter site, including stories from the local residents at Sackville where they were listening to, they would hear Radio Canada and their toasters and their faucets and on every device they have in a home. Pretty cool and very emotional documentary. I wish you would sell the documentary somewhere. Pretty amazing and just so sad. Okay. China also says China Radio International in Russian, they speak well, but it's not native. They do have a clear accent. So take care, Southern Illinois Shortwave. Happy Halloween. Don't eat too many candies. KW61, 1161, nice to have you here from Tucson, Arizona. Radio Caroline in the 60s. Jonathan Marks actually does have his own archive of shows. He actually is asking people where he could put them, because the problem with the archives is that wherever you put them, usually it's not free. So if you put a full archive of shows, what happens is that they you have to pay to maintain the hosting, and if you stop, well, it's all gone. So he was like, I think, searching for a way to keep them online forever. So I don't know. It's just kind of interesting. Shelly, nice to have you here from South Central Pennsylvania. Yes, it is warm in the 80s. London says 2 hours until trick or treat. We rig for silent running, no lights. Jeff King, nice to have you here. Yeah, couple of hours here at around 7, usually 6:30 p.m. 7. So I'd say about an hour. There's already going to be some little monsters on the street. My evening tonight is booked into, after this live show, I'm going to the haunted alleys with my nephew, and then when I come back home, at least 1, maybe 2 horror movies before going to bed. It's always my Halloween night. Richard Wagner. So how far would our WWV signal be when using a SDR radio? What exactly do you mean in the question? I don't understand what you mean exactly with that question. John Beckham, nice to have you here. UTV and Ham, KD9 WNV, nice to have you here from Wisconsin. What else do we have? How about Radio Tashkent, says Mike WX50. I used to enjoy listening to them. They send cool QSLs and other cool stuff. So Radio Tashkent. Let's check it that. Uzbekistan. Radio Tashkent International. This one is from 2005. There's even one in 2000. So let's check Radio Tashkent International. There we go. Those interval signals some are so creepy or amazing.
This is Radio Tashkent International. Dear listeners, we would like to remind you that as of December the 1st of 2005 till March the 25th of 2006, Radio Tashkent International will broadcast at 100 hours UTC in 41 meter band on frequency of 7190 kilohertz at 1200, at 1330, at 2030, and at 2130 hours UTC in 42 meters on frequency of 7185 kilohertz.
Shortwave archives got things like Christmas Eve shortwave tunings and other things from 2022, but I think those are too new. Well, they are older broadcasts. They could be interesting. KW61, looking at your DX Ernie and the bathtub video. Yeah, that was my first radio. I mean, my sister told me I was about 5 when I got it, because I asked her. She saw a picture of it on Facebook that I posted, and she said I was about 5 when she gave me that as a Christmas gift. It's either a Christmas gift or a birthday gift, but it's a gift for something. But I think it's Christmas. Man, a little bit of souvenirs on it. I mean, it's far, far in the back of my brain, but man, pretty crazy. RJ Dakota and the Radio RSA's New Year's program. Yeah, Radio RSA. Oh man, I listen to South Africa a lot. A lot of us have that, when they were on 25790. Pretty crazy back in the day. So let's check out a 1977 recording.
This is Radio RSA, the voice of South Africa from Johannesburg. $6, Greenwich Mean Time, 8 a.m. South African Time. A very good morning to you from the voice of South Africa, Radio RSA, calling West Africa on 25790 kilohertz in the 11-meter band, 21535 kilohertz in the 13-meter band, and 17780 kilohertz in the 16-meter band.
Man, I was a little bit in a trance here. I was thinking of when I was young and listening to Radio RSA in the living room. And my